I've seen plenty of stupid things in my life, but nothing, and I mean nothing, beats the sight of Karen Jenkins in a cream power suit spread across the hood of her Lexus screaming at my bull while he shoved that shiny SUV toward a drainage ditch one slow step at a time. The wildest part wasn't the screaming, it was the fact she still thought honking was going to fix it. My name's Tom Bennett, and I live on the last strip of old farmland beside Willow Creek Estates, one of those HOA neighborhoods with matching mailboxes, fake lakes, and enough rules to make breathing feel regulated. My family's been on this land 4 generations. The house is small, the paint flakes, the barn leans, and the pasture still opens wide enough to remind me life existed before cul-de-sacs. Out there I keep a few animals, a lot of stubbornness, and Duke. Duke is a Scottish Highland bull, broad as a truck horns, curved like ship anchors. Attitude somewhere between retired bouncer and medieval king. He's not mean. Not unless you push him. Karen Jenkins never understood that. She moved into the subdivision 2 years earlier and immediately decided my farm was some kind of personal insult. Karen walked fast, talked sharp, and carried that HOA clipboard like it was a royal scepter. She'd complained about the smell of hay, the look of my barn, and the emotional distress caused by visible livestock. The morning everything blew up, I was fixing a fence post near the shared gravel easement. Karen liked using that road as her own little patrol route. Duke was grazing by the edge, half asleep in the sun. Karen rolled up, saw him there, and leaned on the horn. Not a polite beep. A long, ugly blast. Duke lifted his head and stared. I remember thinking, well, that was dumb. Karen honked again. Duke started walking. There's a kind of silence right before something unforgettable happens. Even the wind seemed to stop. Duke lowered his head, not wild, just offended, and hit that bumper with one heavy shove. The Lexus skidded sideways, slipped off the road, and dropped nose first into the ditch. Karen shrieked, scrambled out the passenger side, and landed in the mud with one heel gone and both hands flailing. I stood there with a hammer in one hand and a fence staple in the other, wondering whether I was about to be sued, arrested, or interviewed. By noon, I got all 3 possibilities at once. My nephew Wyatt had installed a camera on the gate, and every second was caught in high definition. He posted it online with the caption, HOA President versus Country Bull. Who you got? By evening, it was everywhere. Strangers were calling Duke a hero. Karen naturally was humiliated. That evening, she stormed up my driveway face tight with rage and said, "This is war. I'm not a man who goes hunting for fights. I like my quiet, my land, and my coffee hot." But Karen didn't care about boundaries, legal or human. The next morning, she was back with the tape measure. By afternoon, I got an official notice from the Willow Creek HOA saying Duke was a public safety threat. My barn was a visual nuisance, and I had 48 hours to remove the aggressive livestock. Only one problem: my land wasn't in the HOA. Never had been. The county maps proved it. My property sat just outside their line, a pocket of old farmland Karen could see but couldn't control. So I mailed her a copy of the plat map with my parcel circled and a sticky note that said, "Nice try. Duke says hi." That should have ended it. Instead, she escalated. Karen called zoning, animal control, and the local news. Then she marched to my gate with 2 HOA board members for what she called a formal inspection. She pointed at my barn, my fence, my feed buckets, even Duke's horns, muttering about visual aggression and neighborhood safety. I offered lemonade. One board member took it. Karen kept taking pictures like she was documenting a crime scene. The next morning, I found a sign by the road. "No bulls beyond this point. HOA Rule 14C. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Then I built a scarecrow in a beige pantsuit, pinned a fake name tag on it that said Chairwoman Mooch, and planted it beside the sign. Duke sniffed it, sneezed on it, and walked away. Up to then, the whole thing was absurd but manageable. Then Karen pulled a move that made it serious. She filed paperwork trying to reclassify my property as semi-suburban use, which was her cute little way of dragging my land into HOA reach. That's when the twist hit. My sister Jo came home. Jo had once been a rodeo queen. Now she was a property lawyer with a deep love for justice and an even deeper hatred for petty bureaucrats. She read Karen's letters in my kitchen, took one sip of sweet tea, and smiled the kind of smile that makes bad people nervous. She dug into county records and found exactly what Karen thought nobody would find: her cousin in zoning had been quietly helping her. Personal notes, pushed paperwork, altered sketches, favors done off the record. Jo got certified copies. Then she called Lena Ortiz from the local station. Lena came out to the farm 2 days later. We filmed beside Duke's pasture while he stood behind us, chewing. When Lena asked why I was fighting so hard, I heard my father's voice in my head. Land matters, Tommy. You take care of it and it takes care of you. Karen saw the news truck came charging over and tried to shut the interview down. Lena turned the camera toward her and asked whether the HOA was trying to extend authority past its legal boundary. Karen got loud, real loud. That clip aired that night. By morning, I had a summons for a livestock hazard hearing. The courtroom was packed. Karen showed up in a red blazer and a stack of binders. Joe walked in wearing boots in calm confidence. Karen spoke first. She called Duke a 2,000-pound missile of agricultural menace. She claimed residents couldn't enjoy yoga dog walking or decorating without fear. She even had a slideshow, and one of the photos was so zoomed in it was basically just Duke's nostril on a screen. Then Joe stood up. She walked the judge through the maps, the records, the altered boundaries, the zoning favoritism, all of it. Then she played the video. The whole courtroom watched Karen honk Duke, turn Karen honk again, and that Lexus get nudged into the ditch like it was being escorted by karma itself. The judge paused the frame with Karen flattened against the windshield and muttered, "Well, that looks self-inflicted." That looks... Case dismissed before lunch. I thought that might finally break her. Instead, Karen disappeared for 3 days and came back worse. On the 4th morning, I found a new sign by the road. Citizens for Suburban Order. Reclaiming harmony from agricultural aggression. She'd gone rogue and started a fake committee. Only this time the neighborhood didn't follow. Turns out Karen had been making everyone miserable for years. One man got fined over a bird bath. Another family got reported because their wind chimes sounded too whimsical. Even one of her own board members admitted he'd backed the wrong side. People started talking. Then Karen made the mistake that finished her. 4th of July weekend, with a county burn warning. In effect, she hosted an illegal fireworks show she called a celebration of restored order. One blast cracked so loud it spooked Duke. He hit the pasture gate, broke through, and tore into Willow Creek like Judgment with hooves. By the time I reached the street, he'd crossed 3 lawns, flattened a decorative fountain, and wandered straight into the neighborhood clubhouse through an open side door. Inside, Karen was waiting with an air horn. I yelled, "Don't do it." She did it anyway. The sound ripped through the lobby. Duke dropped his head, snorted once, and charged. Karen tried to dodge, caught her heel, and flew backward into the ornamental koi pond. Water went everywhere. Koi slapped around her like angry little witnesses. Duke stopped right at the edge, stared down like a disappointed judge, then turned and came to me when I rattled a bucket of oats. And because life occasionally writes better endings than people do, the clubhouse security cameras caught everything, including Karen, half-drowned and furious, shouting, "I made the line, I made the rules, I don't care if it's legal." That audio spread faster than the first video. A recall vote was scheduled the next week. The clubhouse was packed. Karen stood at the front, stiff as a fence post, trying to look in control, but the pawn, the footage, and that confession had already soaked through whatever authority she had left. When they asked if anyone wanted to speak, I stood up. I didn't go there to humiliate her. I told them Duke wasn't the real problem. The real problem was what happens when one person gets a little power and decides everybody else exists to be managed. I said a neighborhood is more than property lines and tidy flower beds. It's trust. And once people start using rules as weapons, that trust rots from the inside. Then I told Karen if she wanted to apologize honestly, she still had the chance. For the first time in 2 years, she looked less like a tyrant and more like a tired woman who'd lost herself in her own little empire. Her apology was clumsy and late, but she admitted she'd overreached. The room stayed quiet. Then they voted. She lost, not with cheering, not with cruelty, just with that heavy silence people fall into when justice finally arrives and nobody needs to decorate it. A retired teacher named Gloria took over the HOA. First thing she did was trash the bogus complaint forms. Karen sold her house 2 months later and moved downtown. As for me, life settled back where it belonged. The barn stayed crooked, the pasture stayed green, and Duke stayed mildly famous. Tourists still show up now and then with apples and cameras, wanting a picture with the bull who humbled a bureaucracy. Duke doesn't care about titles. He just likes snacks and peace. And maybe that's the lesson I didn't understand until all this happened. Power doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it's a clipboard, a petty rule, a person so drunk on control they forget other people are real. And sometimes all it takes to expose that kind of power is one loud mistake, one stubborn animal, and a crowd that finally decides it's done being afraid. Still, I'd be lying if I said watching Karen crawl out of that koi pond while Duke stood there snorting like a furry executioner didn't feel a whole lot like karma. So what do you think when somebody keeps abusing power? Where's the line between justice and revenge? And if you've ever dealt with an HOA Karen or anybody who thought a title made them untouchable, drop your story and tell me whose side you'd be on.